Okay, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get started already. So, this last Zoom session on numbers and operations, next week we're gonna cover something completely different. So this is gonna be the last time that we talk about the adding and subtracting fractions, mixed fractions to regular fractions, all of that. So, we're mainly just recovering it again because I still see some people that are having trouble with it, and I want to make sure that you guys understand it because next year you are going to be doing this in your classes, and so I'm kind of getting you guys ready for next year with this. So let me start with um, we'll start with adding and subtracting integers and whole. So we'll start with this part first, and then we'll go to the rest. So with adding and subtracting integers, the main thing that I keep seeing you guys messing up on is the anytime that we have a number like 20 and then we subtract a larger number. So a number like, let's say it was 41, something like that. So what you have to do, and we've talked about it in the other Zoom sessions also, but what you have to do first is you have to understand which one is which symbol. So like this first one right here, that is a positive number. And the second one right here, it's a negative number because there's a subtraction sign in front of it. So if you have a positive 20 and a negative 41, 20 of the positive number, 20 of those will cancel out 20 of these. And so this number is going to go down by 20 because of the positive 20 that are over here. So this will go down by 20, and then you're going to be left with a negative 21. And that'll be your answer for that. If we were doing something like a small number, you can draw the numbers. So if you're doing something like 2 minus 3, something like that, then you can draw those circles out like we've done in class. So where you have 2 circles like that, and then you can write positive on both of them. So because this one is positive, and then this one over here is negative. And then you can write 3 negative circles. And then so negative, negative, negative. And then so 2 of these are going to cancel out 2 of these. And then you're left with 1 negative, right? So negative 1. So that part, I have been seeing that a lot of people are getting it now. But it's something that you're going to continue to use this till high school. It's something that it is the first time that you're going over it, but it is something that you're going to be using from now on. So it's really important to understand this now, so that way it makes it easier later on down the line in 7th, 8th grade, high school, all of that. So that's with those. The only other different one is going to be something like this. When you see, let's say it's a positive 5 minus a negative 2. So when you have 2 negatives in front of each other like that, they're going to combine, and then they're going to create a positive, right? And then so now it's just 5 plus 2. That equals 7. That's it. When you have a negative, it's the same thing. So like if you have a negative 3 minus negative 6, then these two combine, they turn into a positive. And now your question is going to be this. So there's 3 negative and there's 6 positive. So 3 of these negative are going to cancel out 3 of these positive, and then you're going to be left with a positive 3 at the end. Because again, remember that this one right here is like if you have 3 negative like that, and then you have 6 positive over here. So it's like that. And then 3 of these negative are going to cancel out 3 of these positive. And then you're left with a positive 3 at the end of that. So let me see. So okay. Now let's go into mixed fractions to regular fractions. So mixed fractions to regular fractions, we've been covering a lot, but it is a little complicated. So it's important to learn this now because, like I said, you're going to be using this from now on. So mixed fraction is anytime that you have a big number like this, and then you have a fraction right next to it. So they're combined. So 4 and 1/4. So 4 and 1/4, let's say we're going to convert that into a regular fraction. So what you do is you multiply the big number times the number that's on the bottom, and then you add the number that's on the top. So 4 times 4, 16, and then plus 1, 17. So 17, and then the bottom number is going to be whatever the bottom number was before over here. So you just move that over. And that's it. So your answer is 17/4. The only other extra step is to make sure that you can't simplify this anymore. So in this case, you can't simplify it any more than that. So you're done. That is the answer. So 4 and 1/4. So 4 times 4 plus 1, and then that'll be the top number. And then the bottom number is going to be the same as the bottom number over here. So that part is pretty easy. And then the next part is going to be when you're adding two fractions. So let's start off with a regular fraction, like 4/3 plus, let's say it was 5/3. So whenever it's like that and the numbers are the same on the bottom, then it's a very, very simple equation, because whenever you're adding or subtracting fractions like this, if the numbers on the bottom are the same, then you just leave that on the bottom like that, and then all you're doing is adding the top number. So 4 plus 5, 9, and that's it, 9/3. And then the only extra step is making sure that you can't simplify this. In this case, you can. You can divide both by 3. So if you divide both by 3, then it'll be 3/1, which is the same thing as saying 3. So that would be your answer for this question right here. Now, when the bottom numbers are different, that's when there's an extra step. So let's say we have the same exact problem, but it's 4/3 plus 5/6. Now the numbers on the bottom are different. So in this case, you can't just add it up and the bottom number is going to be 9 and the top number is going to be 9. It's not like that. So when the bottom numbers are different, you can't add the fraction. You have to make the bottom number the same. The denominator has to be the same. So you have to multiply this by 2. So 3 times 2 would be 6. And 4 times 2 would be 8. So now the real question is 8/6 plus 5/6. So now the bottom number stays the same, and all you're doing is you're just adding the top ones. So 8 plus 5, 13 over 6. And that's it. We can't simplify that anymore, so you're done with that. So that's for adding. So when you're subtracting, let's do a subtracting problem. So it's all the same steps. When you're adding or subtracting, the bottom numbers have to be the same. So now let's say that we have 2 over 3 minus, let's say 4 over 6. So bottom numbers aren't the same, so we have to make them the same in order to do this. So times 2. So that way we can make that 3 a 6. So it'll be 6, and then the bottom number is 2 times, or the top number is 2 times 2, which is 4. So 4 over 6 minus 4 over 6. So now this will be 0. Because that is the same exact number. So 0. Now let's say that we have a larger number. So like, let's say we have 10 over 3, something like that. So in this case, if you have 2 over 3 minus 10 over 3, then all you're doing is you're just subtracting the top one because the bottom numbers are the same. So the bottom number will stay the same. And then the top number is going to be 2 minus 10. So whenever it's 2 minus 10, remember, this is a positive and this is a negative. So which number is larger? The larger one is the negative 10. So the answer I already know is going to be a negative. And so 2 of these positive numbers are going to cancel out 2 of these negative numbers. And so it's going to be a negative 8. So negative 8 over 3. So that would be your answer for this. So that's for that. And the last part is going to be multiplying and dividing fractions. So multiplying and dividing fractions is actually a little bit easier than adding and subtracting. So when you're multiplying and dividing fractions, let's do something like 3 over 2 times 5 over 3. All you're doing is you're multiplying across. So 3 times 5, 2 times 3. So 3 times 5 is 15. 2 times 3 is 6. And that's it. You're done. So 15 over 6. You can't simplify that any further than that. So when you're multiplying and dividing, the bottom numbers do not have to be the same. It could be any numbers because all you're doing is you're multiplying across. Same thing when you're dividing. Let's say we have 4 over 2 divided by 3 over 5. So when you're dividing two fractions, all you're doing is you're going to end up multiplying times the reciprocal. So the actual question is going to be 4 over 2 times 5 over 3. And then you just multiply across again. So this is going to be equal to 4 times 5 is 20. 2 times 3 is 6. And then in this case, you can simplify further because both the top and the bottom number are even. So you can simplify by dividing by 2. So if you divide both of those by 2, it'll be 20 divided by 2 is 10. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then you're done. That would be the answer right there. So whenever you're dividing, all you're doing is you're getting the reciprocal, you're flipping this one around and turning it into 5 over 3. and then you're just multiplying across. And that's it. Now let's do one of the hardest ones that we're doing right now. So one of the hardest ones that we're doing right now is mixed fractions when they're dividing, and you have to convert the mixed fraction to a regular fraction. So let's say that we have 2 over 4 divided by 1 over 8, something like that. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to convert these into regular fractions. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to multiply 3 times 4 and then plus 2 up here. So 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. 14 over 4, because that's the bottom number is right here, and we're just moving that to the bottom down there. And then divided by 2 times 8 plus 1. So 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17, 17 over 8. Now we can actually do the actual calculation. So 14 over 4 divided by 17 over 8. So what you have to do in this case is we have to get the reciprocal. And so now it's going to be 14 over 4 times 8 over 17. So now we can actually calculate this out. So now all you have to do is multiply across like that. So 14 times 8, what you're going to have to do is do that by hand. And then 8 times 4 is going to be 32. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 3. That's 8, 9, 10, 11. So 112. So 112 will be at the top. And then 4 times 17. So So 7 times 4 is 28. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. So that's a 68. And that'll go down here. And then now all you have to do is just simplify, that's it. So I know for sure, since both the top and the bottom are even, then I can divide by 2. So 112 divided by 2 is going to be 56. 68 divided by 2 is going to be 34. And then both top and bottom are still even, so you can divide that by 2 again. And it'll be 56 divided by 2, which is 28. And then 34 divided by 2, which is 17. And then at that point, we're done. Can't simplify any further, so that's it. And that'll be that. So really, I mean, these are the ones that are the most difficult ones. All right. So the last thing that I am going to cover is going to be um, whenever you're multiplying or dividing by different symbols. So if we're, let's say, for example, I'm multiplying 4 over 2 times negative 3 over 5, something like that, then the answer is going to be negative because this one is positive and this one is negative. So let me write that down. So positive times positive equals positive. Positive times negative equals negative. And then the only other one is negative times a negative equals a positive. So the easiest way to remember this is if you're multiplying or dividing by the same thing, so like positive times a positive, it's going to be a positive. If you're multiplying the same thing, negative times negative, it's still a positive. And then the only other time that it will be a negative is when the two are different. So if you're multiplying a negative times a positive, or if you're multiplying a positive times a negative. Both of those cases, the answer is going to be a negative. So if the symbols are the same, it's going to be positive. If the symbols are different, it's going to be a negative. So in this case, you have something like 4 over 2 times negative 3 over 5. So they're two different signs. So I already know that the answer is going to be a negative. 4 times 3, remember, because we're just multiplying across. So 4 times 3 is a 12 over 2 times 5, which is 10. So it's a negative 12 over 10. The only other thing we can do is we can simplify both by dividing by 2. So that'll be a 6 over 5, and the answer is still negative. So it's like that. Now let's say that we're multiplying two negatives. So negative 1 over 3 times negative 2 over 4. Erase this stuff. Okay, so all you're doing is you're multiplying across. And so it's going to be 1 times 2, which is going to be 2. And then 3 times 4, which is 12. So 2 over 12. And in this case, the answer is going to be positive because it's a negative times a negative. So it's going to be a positive 2 over 12. The only thing that you can do is you can divide both by 2 because you can simplify it. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So it's going to be a positive 1 over 6 because both of them are a negative and a negative. So same thing when you're dividing. So anytime that it's exactly the way it's written right here. So if it's a positive times a positive, it's going to be positive. Positive times a negative or negative times a positive, the answer is always going to be negative. And then negative times a negative will also be a positive. Okay. So that's that. The only other thing is to make sure that you guys are showing your work because once you guys get back to school, right now it's kind of hard to show work because of quizzes and all that, but you need to make sure that you're able to show your work because that's the way it's going to be in 7th grade. They're going to want to see you show your work. So if you have, you know, something like 36 divided by 2, you have to remember how to calculate this. You can't forget how to do that. So whenever you have something like that, cowboy rides the horse, right? So the cowboy is going to sleep inside of his house. So that 36 is going to be in here, and the horse is going to sleep outside. So the 2's over here. So you have to remember how to do this. So 2 goes into 3 how many times? It's 1. So 1 times 2 is going to be 2. So that goes right here. Subtract that, and it's going to be a 1. And then you drop this 6 down. And then 2 goes into 16 8 times. So 36 divided by 2 is 18. You guys have to remember how to do these because you're going to have to show your work once you start going back to school. So let's say, for example, I have a harder one. So let's say that it's something like 2 divided by 7, something like that. So 2 would be in here, 7 would be out here. 7 does not go into 2. So what you have to do is you have to add a 0. And whenever you add a 0, you have to add a decimal at the top. So 7 goes into 22 times. That'll be 14. Subtract that, then 20 minus 14 is 6. 7 does not go into 6, so we have to add another 0. And 7 goes into 60. How many times? I think it's 7 times 9 is 63. So 7 times 8 is 56. So it's 8. And then so 60 minus 56 is 4. And then you go on and on and on. But you guys have to remember how to do these because once you start having to, or once you go back to school, you're going to have to start showing your work again. And you can't forget how to do this. So, so that's pretty much it for everything today. Once you guys finish assignment 20, I think next week because I had a few people say that they prefer to have the Zoom sessions on Monday and Tuesday. So I think I'm going to do Mondays and Tuesdays. So I'll send out an email to show you guys what time. I'll post it on Google Classroom, and I'll also send out a text to parents. So assignment 20, I'm going to upload it right now, like in a few minutes, and then I'm going to upload the paper version first. The quizzes, I'm almost done with it, so I would say in about 30 minutes I will upload the quizzes link. And you'll only have to do one or the other. You don't have to do both. I keep having that same question over and over and over. If you have to do both the paper version and the quizzes version, no, you only have to do one. I'm only taking one grade. What I'm checking first is the quizzes app. So if I check the quizzes app and you have a grade already in there, then that's your grade. If I don't see a quizzes link, or a quizzes grade for you, then I check Google Classroom. And if I don't see anything in Google Classroom, then I go ahead and check like to see if you emailed it to me. And if I don't have any of those 3, then you got a 0 for that. But you have to do one or the other. You don't have to do quizzes, assignment 20 for quizzes and assignment 20 paper version. You don't have to do that. It's either one or the other. It's the same exact assignment, so I don't have to have you do both. But anyway, I will record this also where I am recording it. So I'm going to upload that to YouTube as well. And I think that probably within about 30 minutes, then I will upload the quizzes link. So if you guys have any questions, send me a private message or tell your parents to message me also if you have a question. All right, that's it, guys. Bye.